That's just because maybe I yell. I have a tendency to raise my voice. I'm such a retiring wallflower type person. Hi, thank you very much for coming. I'm Laurie Cadden, the president of the Lackawanna County Commission for Women. And before we introduce our wonderful panel, I would like to ask if all of the ladies who are on the board of the Lackawanna County Commission for Women could stand and be recognized as our board members, please.
Just had the people that weren't on it sit.
Thank you, ladies, and thanks for all your help. Thank you to the Scranton Cultural Center for hosting this beautiful event. Deb Peterson, the executive director, is also on our board, and she's waving in the back, so thank you to the Cultural Center. Okay, and a special thanks to my, Deb, Maria did the car. So Maria, Deb had to recruit a couple of her staff members who are actually in the house here and helped us out at the last minute, so thank you to Maria for that. And I'm going to introduce our panel. We have been talking about all different ways. Every year we do a seminar, a health seminar. And Donna Barbetti, who's on the State Commission for Women, said that Governor Wolf's thought process and looking ahead wants to really speak and have aging understood because of the aging population in the state of Pennsylvania and just all of the people that we care for and love, and as we age, we need to be more informed. So we thought that this would be a great way to put this, whether you're in the audience because you were dragged here by a board member, or you're taking care of an aging parent or friend, or you just want information yourself about what services are here in our beloved county of Lackawanna, and the other wonderful people who actually help and do things for an aging population. So down far to my right is Diane Baldy, RN. Diane is the CEO of Hospice of the Sacred Heart. Next to her is attorney Kevin Grievous, who is a partner with Colbert and Grievous, and he specializes in elder law. Next to Kevin is Theresa Hinton, attorney Theresa Hinton. She is the vice president and trust officer for Fidelity Bank. We also have no we don't. We have Jason Kavulich, who is the director of Lackawanna County's Area Agency on Aging. Can everybody say that fast? Because I get that messed up every time I say it. And Michael Kelly, who is with owner, everything to do with every type of, say it, Mike, any type of facility. He used to say this, and this isn't nice, but I'm going to say what you said to me at one of your parties at Greenridge. He said to me, he said to Alex Hazoria and I were standing, and he said, "You're only one slip away from being here." And that's exactly what he said, right?
Great,
True.
I was drunk.
He was drunk, that's it, no. But anyway, Michael's with Senior Healthcare Solutions. So what I thought we would do is let everybody talk a little bit about why they were asked to be on this panel. Believe me when I tell you, we could have the room into the next room, into the lobby of different people here that we could get to give you information on aging. But we started with this fabulous group, and it'll all kind of blend together, and hopefully you'll be able to take some good advice. So Diane, as I said, is the CEO of Hospice of the Sacred Heart. And Diane, could you give a little bit of background about you and Hospice of the Sacred Heart, please?
How much background do you want, Laura?
Way back.
Well, I was speaking to Kevin earlier. I'm a registered nurse for more years, longer than Kevin is old, I think, but 38 years, but I've been doing hospice work for 33 of those years. So Hospice Sacred Heart we're celebrating our 17th anniversary coming up in March, and we serve 9 counties. Our main office is in Wilkes-Barre, but our Center for Education is on Montage Mountain Road, and we have our inpatient unit, our 10-bed inpatient unit in Dunmore. We serve all ages, but predominantly the older population, especially those 80 and older and female. Some of them live alone. And that's a huge problem for them until we develop some special live-alone programs for them. that they're able to stay in their own home. And I think that's what everybody wants to do. How can we age in place? And hospice has a big piece of that. We've had a big piece of that in our program for a long time. But I look around the room and I'm looking at a lot of families that we've been involved with, and I think that they could probably attest even more clearly than I can, because when you hear the word hospice, people go, you know, it's the H word, you know, you don't curse and say hospice. As I said, that since I've been doing it so long, it was such a natural progression. I was an oncology nurse, that's how far back I can go. And it was a natural progression for me to do this. However, when I look at the families around here, you would all probably agree, and I think you would, that we wish, the one thing that hospice families say to us is, I wish we knew about hospice sooner, when the services come in. Because you hear hospice and you think, oh my gosh, you know, mom or dad's going to be gone in 3 days, and they're going to come in and hold hands and light a candle and sing Kumbaya, and she's going to die. And that's not what it is at all. Unfortunately, it can be that way, and that's so sad, because truly, not only the general population, but the healthcare community at large still doesn't understand what hospice is. They tend to call us, you know, average length of stay, it's a 6-month benefit. Average length of stay is still at 61 days. That's 2 months. That's 2 months. So all the services that are available to that older population through hospice, everyone also thinks only cancer patients can go in hospice. That's not true. Our main diagnosis is cancer, but right behind that is cardiac disease, respiratory disease, end-stage dementia or Alzheimer's disease, neurological disorders, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's disease. So you can see how that all, so if you're caring for somebody who may be bedbound or with Parkinson's, or not necessarily even bedbound, we have cardiac patients who go get their hair done and they go to the grocery store, but their prognosis is 6 months or less. So quickly, Laurie, I know you want to get on, that with the hospice benefit, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, through Medicare, all the patients' medications are paid for. That's a huge burden very often, is the cost of medications. Their supplies, their medical equipment in their homes, their hospital bed, anything they need, walker, wheelchair, anything is paid for. Any amount of services through the RNs, through the LPNs, through the social worker, through the counselors, through the pastoral care, to volunteers. So all of that makes such an enormous difference, and it allows people, once again, who are sick, who have a prognosis of 6 months or less, that's determined by their physician, to be at home. And we very much want to do that. And when it does happen, it really, it's a wonderful experience. And it certainly helps people who may be for the first time going through that. And it can be so devastating because you've never done it before. So it helps when you have a team that comes in and allows you to be the child, to be the daughter, to be the wife, to be the mom, and allows the nursing staff and the other team members to take care of the patient's needs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Attorney Grievous, who is, as said, a partner with Colbert and Grievous. And in the audience, too, didn't she tell me if I don't mention her, I'm in trouble? Kevin?
Absolutely.
Didn't she, Louise? I'm teasing. But Louise has been wonderful and a great friend, Colbert and Grievous, to Hospice of the Sacred Heart, too. But Kevin, tell everyone a little bit. You specialize in elder law. Could you just give a little background, and we're going to get into some questions about it.
Sure, Lori. I want to thank you again for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's really my pleasure to be with you here tonight. As Lori said, I'm a certified elder law attorney. So, what does that mean? I specialize in areas of the law that generally affect people 55 years of age and older. A lot of that is estate planning. So that would be preparing wills and powers of attorney, perhaps trusts for people really of all ages. But really, I think what sets us apart as elder law attorneys, and more particularly as certified elder law attorneys, is our focus on helping people protect their home and their assets from exposure to the costs associated with long-term care. So most people work their whole life to accumulate their savings, they have a house, they have investments, and it's their desire to maintain those assets and perhaps eventually pass those assets on to their families. So we're in a position as certified elder law attorneys where we help people meet those goals, be able to preserve their resources. My partner Brenda Colbert and I, that is literally all we do. We don't practice in any other areas of the law. And we are local. Our office is on Montage Mountain Road in Moosic, and we also have a presence in Kingston. So from those two offices, we really do assist clients from all over northeastern Pennsylvania. But our goal in meeting with clients is always to provide people with peace of mind. And I hope that today I'm able to provide you with some good information, because there is a considerable amount of disinformation or bad information out there related to this sort of planning. So we're going to set a lot of those records straight today, I hope, on this panel. So again, Lori, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And next we have attorney Theresa Hinton. Theresa is a vice president and trust officer at Fidelity Bank. And Theresa, will you give everyone, because I have to say that I'm an ex-banker, I always have to throw that in, but I didn't realize how much help a bank could actually be as people age and getting to that position. So could you tell everyone what your role is, please?
Sure. So again, thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me today. Just a little bit of my background is I practiced law for about 25 years. Did a little change into the trust world and banking world 4 years ago. I did a lot of estates and trusts and did some litigation also related to estates and trusts, and that's one area that I really enjoy. So the transition to work in banking in the trust department was kind of seamless for me. What we do in the trust department at Fidelity Bank is we work with a lot of attorneys, just like Kevin and Brenda and their clients, when they need to have wills, powers of attorney, trust drafted. And then once those agreements are done and those documents are done, a lot of times we end up as the trustee, the administrator of the trust. So we help people make their financial decisions. Or help with that sort of planning on how you're going to do it. We do bill paying, for example. So if we have individuals who come in that really don't have anybody else, or maybe the other people that are in their lives are disinterested and don't have the skills to be able to handle that. Maybe their husband had passed away and they're thinking, how am I going to do all this? I have, $100,000, $500,000, $1 million in assets. I don't know how to do this anymore. We'll handle the financial end of that. Sit down and go through what your goals are, what your needs are, along with the attorneys who will help with the planning for asset protection. And then we'll step in and manage the assets for you. We'll also can, like I said, do bill paying for you. So even if you want to use a different type of trust instead of an irrevocable trust, you want to do a revocable trust, one where you can stay as involved as you wanted in making those decisions. You can have your bills sent to the bank. So if you wanted to vacation somewhere, you just don't want to have that burden anymore, we will help you do that. We will also act as agent under a power of attorney as well for our clients when they come in. If they don't have anybody else, or they don't have anybody else that's interested in doing that, the bank will step in. Prefer not to make medical decisions, but we'll be happy to make the financial decisions for you. But we work very, very closely with the attorneys in this area that do, estate planning, and then we, can sometimes give some more ideas to talk about. Then they'll go meet with the attorneys, have the agreements drafted. We work with them to make sure it works the way that it's supposed to work, and then we'll step in when the time comes and help administer. So,
Thank you, Tara. Next up, we have Jason Kulich. Jason is the director of Lackawanna County's Area Agency on Aging. Jason, lots going on in this county, so we know that. You've been there for how long?
3 years.
3 years, and you've been in that department though, right, for a while before that, weren't you? Were you there first?
I've been with the county for 20 years.
There you go, long time. Okay, so Jason, explain to everybody, and we could be here till tomorrow when we tell you but give a brief overview of what you do.
Well, thank you all for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and it's always important for us to take an opportunity and talk about the services that we offer at the Area Agency on Aging, because really and truly we service over 30% of the citizens of Lackawanna County. Everyone, it doesn't matter of your income, is eligible to come to the Area Agency on Aging for at least a discussion, a consultation, and maybe direction in where you or your loved one need to go to access services. So it's always important to us to make sure that people know we're there and that we're there to serve them, okay? We oftentimes deal with those individuals that don't have the resources to have a trust fund or don't have the resources to have, money set aside. They're living on, less than $1,000 a month. In fact, 33% of the 30% of the seniors in Lackawanna County, so better than, average, are living on less than $1,000 a month. So they're living in between $700 and $900 a month, most of them, and it's a wonder that they're surviving. So while we are working with that demographic, we're also working to make sure that there's services in the community, free services for social and health and wellness activities, that we fund all the senior centers in Lackawanna County that are open right now. There's 9 active senior centers that have recreational and health and informational resources to all of you. We also fund transportation services. When you see the blue buses riding around, those funds come from the Area Agency on Aging, as well as some lottery dollars and some transportation dollars, but mainly right out of our budget. And we also, we have to do some of the more unpleasant work when it comes to older adult services. We do protective service investigations. And they're the investigations on people that have been exploited, either physically, emotionally, or sexually, and financially. So there's some tough investigations that we have to work through, either in facilities or in homes, but we have a great community. We have an incredible district attorney's office that is supportive of us. Our court system, Judge Durallo, has been a fierce advocate for the rights of older adults. And we're lucky that we have the providers in our area that work so closely with us. 2 of the individuals at the table today also volunteer. We have free legal services for those individuals who can't necessarily afford an attorney. We have the Elder Justice Project that helps do wills and simple estate planning and powers of attorney. So there isn't a service that you can't come to us and we can at least direct you into the direction you need to go. And sometimes people qualify for services, especially our caregiver program. If you're taking care of a loved one, it's a really important program to look into to see if there's resources available to help you, and even if it's to just get some respite services for yourself while you're caring for your loved one. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have. Like we said, we can go on all night long just on the Area Agency on Aging, so I'll cut it short.
Thank you. And Mr. Kelly is the owner of Senior Healthcare Solutions. Mike, would you give, and I thought it was important because I don't know about you, but I never know the difference really between personal care and skilled nursing and nursing and all of the different levels from payment and otherwise. So Mike, could you talk a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. And again, thank you for asking me,
Thank you.
but don't ask me anymore if it's 10 o'clock and I'm half drunk. And then send me a text the day of and say, hey, do you know you have to speak tonight?
That's it.
Seriously, we go back a long
Yes,
way. And
we
I
do.
look out here, and Jason, I was a board member on the advisory council at how many years? 30-some years. And then I realized that they fired me. I got a letter one day. Said, you did a good job, but we're retiring you. But I know Becky and the whole crowd back there. And I've operated in a lot of counties, and I just wanted to give you guys a little tip of the hat that our area agency on aging here is #1. You don't know some of the counties, so we're very, very fortunate to have Jason and people like Becky, because that agency is amazing. I just wanted to throw that in. I actually started my career off as a donut stuffer at the Dunkin' Donuts on Wyoming Avenue.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, and I got fired because I was a 2-pusher, because you're only supposed to put it on and press once. And I always wanted to give the people more, so I was a 2-pusher. So the Greek guy that owned it at the time kicked me out the door, so that's how I started my career. But actually, upon graduating from college, I actually was in public accounting and got hired at Allied Services, which at that time, and I think Donna's here, and Donna and I worked together. She was right when they had just built the nursing home, I went up as the controller, and Donna was the dietitian, and she's probably to this day, and I've worked with a lot, the best dietitian I've ever worked with, so kudos to Donna Barbetti. Very intelligent,
Donna.
very, very unbelievably good. So
That's right.
I was at Allied, and Donna remembers this. There was some turmoil at the time up there, and they fired the administrator, and they called me down to the front office and said, we want you to be the administrator. And I didn't know one thing about that. I was a number cruncher, and I said thanks, but no thanks. And the president at that time said words that are sort of prophetic, because he said, Michael, at Allied, it's either up or out. So I was given a bunch of books, and I studied them, and I passed the exam, and they made me the administrator, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me at that time. I really loved it. I worked as an administrator, and right at that time was when OBRA was coming, and Act 185 was enacted by Governor Robert Casey back in the late 80s. And at the time, we saw that as a potential opportunity, particularly for Lackawanna County, which had such a high elderly population. What essentially was happening historically, nursing homes were filled, probably 50% of the people really didn't need to be there. They didn't need the services of a skilled nurse. They just were warehoused. They had nowhere else to put these people. So the personal care industry was kind of created to get these people in a more appropriate setting to that end. And my partner at the time, we saw that as a tremendous opportunity. So we formed a company, and we went out and we decided to build a personal care home. And our process, our whole philosophy at that time was, and I believed it then and I believe it today, was that healthcare is a local business. So our idea was every corner of every town, we wanted a personal care home on. Because when you look at it, if you drew concentric circles around any building, probably people come from about 10 miles away. If I live in Old Forge, I want to be in Old Forge. If I live in Peckville, I want to be in Peckville. And that's held true. It was a little tricky getting the financing at first because I had a $35,000 house with a $34,000 mortgage on it, 2 kids and a bad car. But we were very fortunate to meet some elderly gentlemen that kind of financed us initially. And we really didn't know what was going to happen. We built what we called a medical model. We were going to build a personal care home, but we were going to have a nurse in it, even though we really didn't need to have it. And I'll get into a little bit later on what the differences are, but we built the first one in Peckville and called it Mid-Valley Manor, and if it didn't fill, I was bankrupt. If it did fill, great. And we opened it on October 31st, and we were filled by Thanksgiving. We admitted 60 people that quick. So we knew we were onto something. So we pretty much went down Route 11 all the way, and to this day, I've constructed 24 skilled nursing and assisted living facilities, and I have 4 in the ground now. I've sold and spun some of them off, but primarily an owner, operator, developer of skilled nursing and assisted living facilities. So that's kind of what I do.
And before I go further, is there anyone who has a question now based on what you heard from anyone before? You know how you think, oh, I forgot because we moved on. Does anyone have a question for the panel at all? No, not yet? Okay. So, Diane, could you let everybody know with hospice, and I'm so happy the way you put that, as so many people consider it to be the last three days of your life. And there's so much more, knowing myself from my mom who was with hospice, and Donna's mom, and other people who, for months and months in advance, are treated and cared for, including with the PATH program, which might be very beneficial for them to understand. Could you talk a little bit about that program and who would benefit?
Sure. We do have a PATH program. It's probably about maybe 10 or 12 years old now, and we have not patients in PATH, we have clients, and we have about 150 PATH clients. It's a kind of a transitions program. What it involves, and it costs nothing, which is the nice part of it. It is funded through Hospice of the Sacred Heart and a grant every now and then when we're lucky. We have 2 social workers. They're on our staff, and they only work in the PATH program. So the PATH program, and it's probably easier if I tell you what the patient may look like. Donna, you know this very well. The PATH client is a patient who doesn't meet the criteria for hospice, doesn't have that 6-month or less prognosis, okay? And they don't meet the criteria for home health because that usually is only a short term, and the minute you're admitted to home health, you're looking at a discharge plan, and they have to be homebound and many other things, so they don't meet that criteria. But they're in the hospital a lot, they're going into the ER a lot, and they, some of them live alone, some of them live in the high rises, and they're not, like I say, they don't meet the hospice criteria, and they certainly don't miss the home health criteria, so they kind of fall in the middle. So they're repeat into the ERs a lot, in and out of the hospitals a lot. So the PATH program was designed to do this. We have our social workers who can help them with, and any of the social workers in the room, you know what great work that they do. They'll help them through all the kinds of social work things that they need in terms of, contacting people and other agencies to help them. Meals on Wheels, for example. I'm looking at Kristen back there. But then we have volunteers set up who are really only PATH volunteers, and they have a script, and I'm going to borrow my my prop from Kevin. So they'll call and they say, Mrs. Jones, hi, it's Diane. How are you today? I'm good. Did you take your medicine? Do you need anything at the store? Do you need a ride to your doctor's appointment? Have you weighed yourself today? So the script is all set out for them, right? Well, no, a lot of people, you don't want to know what the weight is. They just make sure you weighed yourself, right? And that way, then they can report back to the social worker, who then might report to the physician and say, this is what's going on. So it really has helped people stay out of the hospital. They have a support staff, they have a lifeline, so be it. And then they can transition into either hospice program or home health program, and it really works very, very nicely.
Diane, for anyone interested, that, again, those are things that, just go yes, no. How many people knew that that was an option with hospice? Many? Not many. So that's the thing. I mean, this is what, the more we put it out there, the more you're going to understand and be able to do what you need to do for your loved ones. It's just going to be more helpful. Diane, also, anyone in the audience too, the volunteers section at the unit. Now, one thing is there's a 10-bed inpatient unit in Dunmore, as Diane said. But Diane, tell everybody at one time, for the most part, an average number of people who are dealing with Hospice of the Sacred Heart now. Now, 10-bed unit, but how many people do you take care of on a daily basis?
250.
There you go. So those are,
Yeah, but those patients are at home, or,
Right, but
and
that's what I
as
mean,
Michael
there's all
said, a
these other
long-term care,
options.
right.
Right.
So, and then, sometimes you're scrambling for beds,
Yeah.
But, no, it's like I said, we have a big staff, and volunteers are mandatory
Right.
for any hospice program to survive, and we're blessed, and we're always looking for volunteers.
And we have two
never
of our
speak up
favorites in the
publicly.
room,
Yes,
Sharon
we
and
do, for our
Saray back
inpatient
there.
unit and for our patients
Volunteer in
at
the
home.
inpatient unit. So if you ever think about that and you think it's so needed, because
It's life-changing.
it
yeah.
is. So, Michael, I have a question for you. The difference between, you said, which year did that change, where you went to personal care, personal home?
Well, that was in the late 80s.
Late 80s?
There was always personal care, but in the old, it was probably like a lady had 4 or 5 bedrooms in her house and took people in. The industry kind of got revolutionized after Act 185. We're actually, probably, there was thousands of personal care homes built through the glut of the 90s, so it was Wall Street got on it and looked at that as the future of long-term care. But just to kind of tell you the differences,
Yeah.
personal care were set up to provide safe, supportive settings for people that aren't well enough to stay at home. Maybe your mom is getting forgetful, she's not taking her meds, she might fall, she might have some minor health issues, but really doesn't require a skilled nurse or an RN 24 hours a day. But you don't feel safe at keeping her at home. So assisted living or personal care centers provide 24-hour supervisory care. They will assist with the dispensation of your medications. They provide all meals. They clean your room. Most of them have good activities, hopefully good activities programs, provide transportation back and forth between physicians. We typically have a medical director that'll come to the building, dentist, et cetera. So it's more allowing you to remain as independent. You're free to come and go as you please in a personal care home. You could have a car. There's nothing really that would preclude you other than being completely immobile, when you would have to be on the first floor then and be able to get out. So it allows you to remain as independent as long as you can without requiring that. So that's the difference. The payment source for that primarily is private pay, most of it. It'd be your pension and or Social Security, depending on the price point the facility is charging. Some facilities take SSI recipients. It's kind of difficult. I think that's probably Jason's greatest challenge, which pays, what now? I don't even know what it pays anymore. That's pretty much how you get paid for personal care, but it could be very successful. It could allow your mother, again, to stay independent without being in a 24-hour like nursing home. Skilled nursing, yes, ma'am.
So personal care would be similar to assisted living, correct?
They're used interchangeably. The only really varying degree is assisted living's, it's some physical plant modifications, as well as there has to be a nurse there. Personal care is still to this day, you don't have to have a nurse there. So that's primarily the difference. Skilled nursing, on the other hand, provides 24-hour skilled nursing inpatient care on a daily basis. So that's for people that have suffered from chronic diseases. You've seen a lot of nursing homes have short-term rehab, and if you have a hip fracture, stroke, et cetera, our goal then is to get you in. and is out as quickly as possible. However, you know, we don't always successful, as Diane Baldy could tell you, and sometimes, you know, we contract with home health and hospices. And then there's always that long-term care population that you're going to have that have illnesses and will probably be there until the day they expire. So that's what we do in skilled. We're undergoing a major overhaul now, not only on the patient care side, but on the payment side as well. We have now community health choices, which gives you the choice for your Medicaid benefit. I think there's 3, AmeriHealth, Pennsylvania Health and Wellness, and UPMC. So you could actually contract with one of those third-party providers and be more involved in choosing what kind of care you want and where you want to have it and how you really want to live your life. And it gives you a lot more choices. Yes?
Michael, is skilled nursing private pay also?
We love it if you're all private. But unfortunately, that's a very short percentage of our population because obviously to run a skilled nursing facility entails having a lot of skilled labor. You're talking to physical therapists, occupational therapists, RNs, RNACs, so it's very costly to run a nursing home. So that's why the price points be anywhere from $200 to $300 a day to stay in a nursing home if you're private pay. And that's where Kevin has to come in and make sure that your private, your cash and any assets you have, you know, they do a five-year look-back period, and any assets you may have, and you know, you think you're leaving your, and I've had it. Saddest day is when, you know, some poor lady and guy that lived up in Peckville all their life, and the only thing they were leaving their children was their home, and then they realize, what do you mean my home's going to be sold, you know, and you have to pay for it, and it's devastating, and you hate to be on this side of the table for it, but, you know, you got to plan. You got to really start thinking about it, particularly those who have elderly parents, in order to preserve and protect the assets. So. Yes, Don.
Michael, what does long-term care insurance cover?
It depends on the policy. There's some very good policies out there that would pay up to, I believe, 2 years, depending on the illness and the setting. I don't advocate any insurance. I don't know if there's an insurance person here, but the best one I've seen is, believe it or not, is American Express's policy. I think that's a,
I think
because
there's
it
also
covers,
some life insurance policies
that cover personal care as well, because a lot of them don't cover personal care. So if I was going to shop for one, I would shop for one that also covered personal care.
Yeah, we're seeing a trend in clients that come into our office. Now, we don't sell long-term care insurance either, but people used to buy traditional policies where you'd purchase this insurance that would only be activated and necessary if you needed long-term care services. We're seeing more and more life insurance policies with riders that provide a long-term care benefit. In this way, regardless of whether you actually need the long-term care benefit or not, your family is getting something in return. There's going to be a guaranteed, you know, death benefit there available at some point.
I was also cautioning you on, you know, everybody has Medicare when they're 62 or 65. Be careful about selling your benefit or opting out for a GHP or your Humana. Really make sure you know, it's very enticing in these, you see the TV all the time. They have managed care companies really trying to get you to come with them. There's I don't know how many out there. But just be very careful before you give up your Medicare benefit, because I've been in this a long time, and Medicare is the greatest program in the world.
And that's where I just want to jump in and say, when you're considering exactly what he spoke, please access your Apprise counselors. We have the Apprise services right now. Meals on Wheels, Kristen's here today. She's managing the resources that we contract with the Voluntary Action Center to provide to the community. Apprise Insurance Counseling is one of our most fundamental and key services that we offer for free in Lackawanna County. Please make a call. Please discuss it with an Apprise counselor, and they can guide you through the process. It's incredibly important during the open enrollment process to make sure you're informing yourself before you make a decision, because that decision will follow you until you can go back and make a change.
Not to obviate Jason's point, but again, really look at it, because I'm not going to mention the insurance program, but people, I save $700 a year by going with this product. And then they get to the nursing home, and then they find out, I have a $100 a day copay with this? Yeah. I mean, I have to pay $100 out of my pocket? Yeah. That's what you signed up for. So be very, nothing's better than Medicare. I'm not a proponent. I mean, there's nothing better than Medicare.
Can the panel talk about health proxy and living will, please?
That's the next one was going to be, but we're giving everybody
Yeah, just to
time.
summarize, personal care, assisted living is probably a third of the cost, more independence, supervisory care for your mother, so you have peace of mind knowing that somebody's they're staffed by personal care attendants, all their meals are being met, their medications are being given, their rooms are being cleaned, their activities of daily living are being met, their hygiene issues, et cetera. Skilled nursing is when you require a skilled nurse 24 hours a day, either through rehabilitation or chronic disease. So that's, yes.
Sorry, Debbie, I don't mean to go ahead of you. Why doesn't Lackawanna County have a program or a facility similar to Wesley Village? Okay, and they're all over. I mean, we just visited Michael's aunt in Quakertown. Same exact thing.
Yeah.
You go in, you pay an amount of money. Of course, she's a beautiful apartment.
Right.
She's 90 years old. After that, she goes into assisted living.
Right, you go to Anderson
Then skilled
Pavilion, into the,
nursing.
yes.
And no matter if she runs out of money,
Yeah.
they won't throw her
And there's a
out.
lot of them, they're faith-based organizations that get a lot of
But there's
donations.
nothing in Lackawanna County like that.
Well, St. Mary's Villa a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Little Sisters
Um,
of Poor. That's about the.
Why there wasn't one ever done in Lackawanna, I don't know. Again, now,
Yeah.
that's a faith-based, like, they have the Anderson, Wellesley Village is gorgeous, I mean, right. But, Colonel Anderson left $10 million to build them a building, so it's a little different than a private developer going out and trying to do this. It's a little more difficult, but to answer your question, I don't know why they've never stationed up here. We had Holy Family as a faith base.
Yes.
We had, where else?
St. Mary's Villa?
Yeah.
St. Mary's Villa,
Yeah.
which all do a
Then
wonderful
you
job.
could go through those steps.
Yeah.
Which is very important.
But not on the level or magnitude of a Wesley Village,
No.
and if you go down even to Bethlehem, there's beautiful Methodist homes, there's some really nice projects out there.
Kevin, could you tell everybody what documents are necessary? If you have a parent, even yourself, like our age, we should have these things in place. I mean, not that I'm saying you're the same age as me, I'm just saying younger people need it too. But would you tell everyone what the necessary documentation is?
Certainly, and there was a question, I think, in the back of the room that reflected that as well. I would say regardless of your age, I mean, if you're 18 years of age or older, there are 3 estate planning legal documents that you should have. One would be the healthcare power of attorney, which should also include a living will as part of that document. The second would be the financial power of attorney, and the third would be the last will and testament. So I'll start with the healthcare power of attorney because that's really where the question began. This is so important because this is a legal document that you create or have an attorney create for you where you appoint another person to be able to make medical decisions for you should you be unable to make them for yourself. So it really does give you the opportunity to choose who that person is going to be. So this is the person who will do things like admit you to the hospital if you're unable to do so for yourself, authorize care treatments for you, have access to all of your health care information, and speak openly with your physicians. So you get to choose who that person is, and it's a very important document. As part of that, we do recommend that you also include your directives for your end-of-life wishes. So, I've been practicing as an elder law attorney for almost 17 years, and I've met a lot of people over that period of time. And time again, people usually come up with the same idea that they don't want to be kept alive just for the sake of being alive if they're actively dying and if they're no longer competent. And that's when the living will portion of the document actually becomes effective. So only after your physician certifies in writing that you are in an end-stage medical condition and also certifies that you're no longer competent, that is when the living will portion becomes effective. And that's where you're saying that if you're in a condition like that, you do not want life-sustaining treatment. So withhold or withdraw that life-sustaining treatment. No ventilator, no feeding tube, no cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So again, very important documents, and one of the greatest gifts you can give your family is making that decision ahead of time so they don't have to make that decision for you. And also having a discussion with your family members so they don't see it the first time on this cold piece of paper, that they know that this is truly how you feel, that you would not want to be kept alive in a situation like that. So again, very important document. The other equally important legal document is the financial power of attorney. That's the document where you're appointing a person or group of people to handle your financial affairs if you're ever unable to do so for yourself. Again, very important because this person will be paying your bills, managing your investments, and possibly taking the steps to protect your assets if you find yourself in a nursing facility. And nursing facilities, as Michael said, are very expensive, and there's good reason for that. There's a considerable amount of care provided there. But there are programs that exist that you can qualify for to help you pay for that care. But it's all contingent on your resources, on your assets. So you can create a power of attorney where you give your agent the authority to take the steps to protect your assets. Very important. And then finally, the last important document is your last will and testament, because it will direct where your individually owned assets are distributed at your death. But it also allows you to choose who manages everything, who your executor will be. And if you're leaving your estate to family members, perhaps not everyone in your family is good at managing money, so you might want to create a situation where there's a trust for that family member, where they don't have complete access to their money. All of that can be done in a will. Maybe you have a beneficiary with special needs, and you want to provide for that person without disqualifying them for medical assistance or other benefits. You can provide for them through your will by setting up a special needs trust. So again, very important, and regardless of your age, those are the 3 documents that really everyone should have.
I'd like to add something to that too, Kevin, just because I'm kind of in the business of that, you know, and we deal with it every day. There's a couple of things that we encourage people to do whenever. The holidays are coming up. Now, the last thing you want to do at Thanksgiving is have that conversation, but it's a great time to have it. Families around. And as Kevin said, nobody wants a surprise. And I've had too many of those hallway conversations where this might be the time, you know, and this is what mom wants, and this is what your father's always wanted. Do yourself a favor and strongly encourage that. In addition to what Kevin said, was what, for every one of our patients on admission, we give them the 5 wishes. The 5 wishes is a legal document. It is also, it contains a living will. So that very important document that Kevin said, where you say that I would like you to be my power of attorney should I be unable to make decisions for myself. But it takes it out a little bit more. Rather than that very legalese, it says that I want to be in my own home. Important piece. I want these medications. I don't want these medications. This is how I'd like my service to be. This is my funeral. It's kind of like your story, your novel. You can get them online, 5 wishes. We have them, and I strongly encourage you to have that conversation, even to fill out your own, and get your durable power of attorney to go along with that. And it's something you keep with you all times. You make a copy, you give it to your physician so they know. It's really important. It's a very difficult conversation, but trust me, and Michael's been involved in these too, the harder conversation is not having it. So.
Brenda.
Kevin, when do you appoint a power of attorney?
So when do you appoint one? Essentially, again, if you're over 18, you should have a power of attorney signed. Now, I think you're probably looking at when does that become effective, or when does it take effect. Generally speaking, most powers of attorney, most durable powers of attorney for financial matters are immediately effective. Now, that doesn't mean to say the agent is going to actually go out and start, conducting your affairs for you. They must sign an acknowledgement where they're agreeing to act appropriately, and certainly you don't have to give it to them ahead of time.
Okay.
But if you want to appoint someone, but you don't want to extend any authority to them immediately, you can execute what is called a springing power of attorney, which only takes effect after your physician has perhaps certified in writing that you're incapable of managing your financial affairs. But generally, the financial power of attorney is immediately effective. The healthcare power of attorney becomes effective when you need it. So if you are unconscious, or if your doctor determines that you're incapable of making your own medical decisions.
Thank you.
Sure.
Kevin, the springing power of attorney, are then the attorney and the doctor working together? Because how would one know the other if that's not the case?
So when we do a springing power of attorney, we have to alert the family to the existence of the document, and we do encourage the client to tell their doctor that they have this document, and should the need arise, should they become incapacitated, that they need to proactively do something. They need to prepare a written statement indicating that that person is incapacitated, which we can then attach to the power of attorney to spring it to life.
Okay.
Now, I will tell you, most powers of attorney, though, are immediately effective. But every once in a while, someone is not comfortable giving someone that authority immediately, so we do set up, in a situation like that, a springing power of attorney.
Terry, regarding the bank, and as you said, you work very closely with lawyers.
Yep.
You are a lawyer, but working closely with personal lawyers of your customers. Are there fees related to what you do at the bank, like checking, and is there a dollar amount that someone has to have before they can be a part of this?
So the fees that if Fidelity Bank is acting as a trustee of a trust, or an executor of an estate, or a custodian for funds, yes, there's usually, generally speaking, it's a 1% fee. So if you have $100,000, 1% would be $1,000, and that's paid. It's divided by 12 and paid monthly. So it's generally a 1% fee. Custodial fees are generally about 0.5% per year. But you do get professional money management with that. As a trustee, you know, we're bond. There's always somebody there. So there are benefits to having an individual as a trustee. A lot of times we'll act as co-trustees with a family member. There's also benefits to having a corporate trustee. You know, corporate trustee is always there. So you're always going to get somebody who's a personal or an individual trustee. Somebody could have enough time, could not have enough time, maybe doesn't know all of the tax returns that have to go in, or all the tax implications are, or marshaling the assets and keeping track of all that, dividends and you know, payments and things like that come in, making sure that all those interest and dividends, we keep all of that. We have a trust accounting system that we use for that. We've also had instances where you have, you know, estates where leaving, like you said, leaving monies to family members at certain ages maybe isn't the right idea. So you want to leave X% at age 25. Maybe give the trustee the right to the discretion to pay bills or make distributions if a beneficiary needs it. But the beneficiary will have access to get X% of principal at age 25 and again at 35 or 45, however you're going to do that. But when the beneficiary is looking to a family member to ask for money, hey, I want to buy this $50,000 car or this $20,000 car, and it's the aunt or the uncle or the sister that's saying no, it can cause some friction.
Right.
If you put a corporate trustee in the middle, and the corporate trustee is the one that's making that discretionary decision, it can kind of preserve peace within the family where they can say, hey, this isn't up to me, it's up to the bank.
Right.
And you know, you can also give within the document, within the trust or within the testamentary trust, within the will, you can give the trustee the discretion to say, hey, take into consideration what this beneficiary has done with other funds that have been given to him or her. Or do they have a really good job? Do they need to take these distributions? Right? So you can give the trustee the discretion to take other income or living situations into account, or not. You could say, give it to him at certain percentages, and that's what it's going to. So you're in control of those terms of the trust, and that's what you would talk about with your attorney to make sure that that's in there. But all of those things are it's generally a 1% fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, Jason, you and Terry and Kevin can probably talk a little bit about this, which I think is important. You were talking about as far as people who take advantage, Jason, of an elderly person, whether it is physically, emotionally, but what about the financial background to someone who gets, Kevin, a power of attorney and then misuses their role regarding, and then the bank's doing the payments, and do you see a lot of that coming to you, Kevin, or is that not what's, Jason, or is that not how does that work on your end?
It is actually almost to epidemic standards.
Okay.
So we're looking at in 2000,
It's abuse.
financial exploitation is one of the largest groups of protective service work that we're doing right now. But you know, in 2014, you were looking at 115 investigations a year. Last year, we did 610.
Jeez.
So I mean, This is something that we continuously see, and it runs the gambit. We had a sad situation with a woman who was being exploited from, overseas because they had information on her granddaughter, and she was sending them $30,000 a month through UPS to protect herself and say, this is keeping my granddaughter safe because they're going to harm my granddaughter, okay? And then we have the situation where there's a husband and wife and stepchildren, and that gets very messy. That gets very sticky because the stepchildren all of a sudden became executors of the estate, and the biological children were no longer part of the estate, okay? And money, $250,000 is gone in one weekend. So these are things that are happening every day in Lackawanna County. So yes, we have a forensic accountant that we work very closely with for the cases that we believe can bring to prosecution. We also have internal fiscal staff that reviews the cases, and we work with Lackawanna County pro bono if in fact we can look to get restitution for the victim, and through pro bono and through our elder justice program, we've been able to work at getting some of it back, but most times it's gone, and that's why when we talk about this, we make sure people know, beware of the scams. If you look at the county website, if you have any chance, you'll see probably 8 out of 10 slides are scams we advertise that seniors are experiencing. Be careful who you talk to about your money. Okay, go to someone who's trusted. Ask around. If you need to talk to us, we can't necessarily handle your money, but we will help you put you in the hands of someone who can do it and do it trustworthy. We had one woman who came in. She was a doctor. She just moved to our area. She was 70 years old, and she came to the elder elder law clinic, a free service that obviously her income had, she in no way, shape, or form qualified for, but she needed to go somewhere where she could trust and ask around, where's an attorney that I can talk to? Who can I speak to about this? So that I know I'm not going to be exploited, because there's professional exploitation too, that happens. And we see that unfortunately in this space. In our situations, a lot of times we end up having to go to court and we have to do interventions, which are not things that we really look forward to doing. Our guardianship rate has decreased because of the way we've done interventions, but a guardianship is when we come in and we assign an agency to monitor an individual's resources and an individual's and make decisions for that person, both financially and sometimes for their well-being. So that's really the worst case scenario in a protective service case that we see. And it's like I said, it's happening all the time in our community. It's pretty sad.
Just to add on to that just a little bit, probably more often than not, a lot of times it's family members.
Correct.
I mean, from our business, from our perspective, we see it a lot where, for example, a person might be approved for nursing home care, and there's a process in the PA 162, which is the form that says, we're going to pay, Medicaid will pay, but you're responsible for $1,000 a month. Well, the child is getting it, and they're spending it. So when we bill, it's like, where'd you do your mother's money? Oh, did that go to you? They played, it's just, this happens more often than not. And what really used to tick me off was they get $60 a month personal spending allowance, and the son would show up on that day and take it off his mother. So she can't even get her hair done or get a Coke, and this bum that's not working. It used to infuriate me. But, these are kind of things, you see the worst in people. 95% of families are wonderful to deal with and are very loving and concerned. It's like society. That's that 5% that just... it just...
Michael, what happened to that patient that is supposed to give you $1,000 a month and the child has taken it? What happens to that patient?
We will go after the child. Well, what we typically would do, we could issue a discharge notice to the mother in order to scare them. We would never, of course, we would never throw anybody out. But and at that point, we would intervene with Jason and say they can't be the responsible party anymore.
But you would never let someone leave the facility?
No,
Okay.
never throw anybody out because
We've never seen
I didn't see Sue Morale out there. So I didn't see you sitting there. Now, Sue, you're going to be the first employee that's actually starts using their services. Sue started back there in '62 when it first. I'm only teasing. Sue, you look great, babe.
Kevin and anyone else can jump in. Are there different documents that are needed when someone enters a nursing facility other than the ones you've already have outlined in general?
Well, the legal documents, the most important one, honestly, from my perspective, is the financial power of attorney, because oftentimes when someone is entering a nursing facility, perhaps they're not in the right frame of mind to be able to discuss their finances and their resources at the time of admission. So you'd want someone to be able to step into their shoes and really assist the nursing facility in the process of either filing for medical assistance benefits or looking towards ultimately paying privately for that person's care. So that is the most important document. However, there is an opportunity for many people to plan in advance to protect their resources. And I don't know if this is the right time to get into this or not. I can certainly circle back to that. But many of the clients that I'm working with, we set up trusts for them that enable them to protect their resources. And the key to that is doing that within, outside that 5-year look back. So doing that when you're young enough and healthy enough to ensure you're going to get through that look back period. But for actual admission to the nursing home, the financial and healthcare powers of attorney are the two most vital documents.
So let me understand this. When someone is looking at your financial picture when you're going into a nursing facility, why is the sale of the house just because they can't afford based on their own, whether it's, and you were saying earlier, SSI, what is the snag there with, Michael, you mentioned and Jason said it's a problem. What's the difference in that kind of payment? So isn't that enough, or does it depend on the nursing home and then the charges are more so they have to liquidate assets?
We were talking about a personal care space.
Oh, okay.
So there's a
Personal
different
care.
rate. SSI pays a personal care rate,
Oh,
which
all
is
right.
much lower than a private pay rate. So
Okay.
many of the facilities, now we're lucky in Lackawanna County, we have at least 5 different providers that take the SSI rate. And we're lucky because, we can place difficult people without resources in those homes. But that's different than the nursing home
Okay.
placement.
And what I was saying was in a skilled setting, if the mom's dad's in the nursing home, they didn't get the house out of his name, he dies, they're gonna go after.
Right. I think there's a misconception that the nursing home wants your house.
Yeah.
Right, Mike? The nursing home does not
Doesn't
want your house.
Neither does the bank. Right, Tara?
The problem is if someone has been in a nursing home receiving medical assistance to finance their care, when that person passes away, if they own their home, there is something called the state recovery. And it's not the nursing home, it's actually the Commonwealth that's going to recover because they want to recoup the money they spent on that individual's care. So you really don't have to sell your house when you go in a nursing home. However, if your name is the only name on the deed and you go in a nursing home and you spend all your other money down and you qualify for Medicaid, at that point, all of your income is now obligated to the nursing home. So you have no more funds left to pay your taxes, your utilities, et cetera. So at that point, you would essentially have to sell the house in order to unburden yourself from paying the expenses related to the residents.
And what happens when someone has no money and they're admitted to a nursing facility? Are they just accept what they can get and that's it? Or how does that work? Does
If a
anyone know?
person is admitted and they have no financial resources, that's where medical assistance will be utilized to cover the cost of their care. Medical assistance is also known as Medicaid, and eligibility rules are very strict and specific for medical assistance. So if a person is wanting to apply for this program to pay for their care in a long-term care facility, they have to disclose all of their current financial resources, all of their bank statements, potentially for up to 5 years. They also have to disclose any gifts they have made during the last 5 years. And those gifts will then make them ineligible for a period of
If you
time.
don't report it, they're gonna find out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So for that entire process, so what has to happen for that to happen? We would come out and assess an individual, and that's the first pass. So if the Area Agency on Aging does a functional eligibility determination and decides that your nursing facility clinically eligible, that's your first pass. That then your information would be shared with the county assistance office. And you would have to complete a PA 600, which is a painful government application that for some reason is extra hard when it's someone who has to go to a nursing home. So you would complete that application, it would go to the county assistance office. The county assistance office then goes into the 5 years, and they look at 5 years of bank records, like you said, and look at all your assets, and make sure that you've liquidated all your life insurance policies, and that you have a burial account set up, okay? And those are important things to all those important steps. And then finally, it would go to Maximus, which is the independent enrollment broker. And then they would actually assign you a new, they would work with your family or work with you to assign you to a care management agency that would then pick up your case, and you would then be able to get, you would be reimbursed for your nursing facility stay. It's not a very fast process. We do it better. You know, we have 10 days usually turnaround time. You know, we're supposed to have 15. We try to do it in 10. But then it goes to the county assistance office, and that's a guaranteed 30
languishes.
days. Yes, that's it. The county assistance office is a state-run facility. It's not a county-run county-run office.
What do you do if you have an elderly parent, friend, whomever, who won't, you want to help, but they're unwilling to do any of this work?
If I could just answer that quickly. I'm going
Go
to give you a real true story that really just happened to a dear friend of mine from childhood, known her family forever, single, only child, and her mom had a house, and I know Brenda knows this girl. Her mom had a house, all paid for, had like $180,000 in CDs, and I would say, Catherine, you got to get this out of your name. You know, your daughter's not going to. You're gonna, if something, nothing's gonna happen to me, and I don't want to go to a nursing home, and she kicks me out of the house. This is what she thinks. I said, your daughter's not gonna kick. Well, it's my house, and I'm not giving it up. Well, what ultimately happened? This woman had a stroke, and she ended up being admitted to our facility, and she was private pay for I think she lived like 5 years. Private pay, spent all that down. Then she passed, and she lost the house. They took the. So this girl who stood to inherit probably a $200,000 house with a value of $200,000 and $200,000 in cash got nothing.
So is there a right of the?
And this happens more often. Some old people you just can't.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Especially if they went through the depression, you're going to take it off me.
What can we do? Is there a way to help them?
You got to get them to guys like Kevin and Jason here and his peeps.
Well,
Put it in a trust.
Yeah, definitely, there are ways to protect the house and the resources, but the best way to protect the assets is to do so in advance, to not wait until the eve of a crisis when you enter a nursing facility. So planning in advance really involves one of two pathways. You're either going to buy insurance to cover the cost of your care, or you're going to gift assets out of your name, so in the future you'll qualify more easily for medical assistance benefits. The idea with gifting is, if you're gifting now, you need to get through the next 5 years before you're going to easily then qualify for medical assistance. Then the conundrum becomes, well, who do I give my assets to? I have 3 children, these 2 are doing well, this one has creditors chasing after them. Who do I give these assets to? In my opinion, it's not usually a good idea to give the assets directly to your children, because a completed gift is made, and then those assets become subject to their own personal liabilities. I like to utilize a special type of trust, an irrevocable trust that can become the new owner of the home, of the stock, of the investments, of the CDs. And you transfer ownership of those assets into the trust. It's a gift to the trust, but a trust is never sued, a trust doesn't have creditors, a trust doesn't have those problems. So after 5 years, everything that's been placed inside that trust is now protected from the cost of nursing facility care. It won't count against you when you're applying for Medicaid. And also, very importantly, when you pass away, the Commonwealth does not have the opportunity to place a lien against that trust. The trust has named beneficiaries, and the assets flow to the named beneficiaries. So when a person sets up a trust like this, it can either be a single person or a married couple. And they set it up, they fund the trust, they choose someone to be a trustee. It can be literally anyone except them. So you can choose a child, you can choose the bank, you can choose any other person to be the trustee, right? The trustee manages the trust assets. They don't own anything. And then when you and your spouse pass away, the assets that have been held inside that trust are then distributed out to your beneficiaries.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
What happens if mom and dad are healthy, they own their house, they have some money in the bank, and dad falls or something happens, and she has to go to the nursing home. What happens to mom? Do they take her money in the bank? Do they take
So you're talking about a situation where one spouse goes into a nursing home. Thankfully, there are protections built into the law for what we would call the community spouse, the healthy spouse. So essentially, Medicaid, which ultimately will pay for care after you run out of money, is going to look at all the assets. And certain assets are going to be exempt, meaning the healthy spouse can keep them. So the primary residence will be exempt, the contents of the home and one automobile, your burial plots, and a few other things.
So mom has to deplete everything in the bank account?
Not necessarily. So she can keep those aforementioned things, the house, the car, and things like that. But then the cash, the money that's in the bank, the general rule is the healthy spouse gets to retain 50% of that. But there's a maximum on that 50%. So the maximum spousal share is currently $126,420. So that's the maximum amount the healthy spouse gets to keep. So let me give you just a quick example. You have a husband and wife who have a house, a vehicle, and they have $200,000 in investments. Husband enters the nursing home. The wife is going to be allowed to keep the house, the car, and half of the assets, so $100,000. The other $100,000 is going to be considered to belong to the spouse in the nursing facility. And he's going to have to spend his share down to his Medicaid asset limit, which is either going to be $8,000 or $2,400.
Saray.
I just have one question. It is my situation right now. 91-year-old mother. I'm her primary caregiver. Half of the house has already been signed over to my sister years ago. The other half of the house is, of course, in jeopardy. So, is it possible for the other half of the house to be purchased by a family member?
Before you would go about doing that, you'd want to look to see how you own it jointly. If your mother and your sister own the house jointly with the right of survivorship, your mother's half is not in jeopardy, because upon her death, even if she's been receiving medical assistance, her share will automatically pass to your sister, and there will be no Medicaid lien placed against it. But if they own it as tenants in common, then when your mother passes away, her estate or her will direct where her share goes, and then it would be at risk. So you would need to look at the deed to see.
So is your sister's name on the deed?
Yes.
This isn't like a double house and your sister owns the other half and she
No,
owns
it's a single.
No, this
Single
is a
house, okay.
family home.
Yeah, you just looked up to see how that's titled. See
Yeah,
the title,
see how
if
the
tenants in
deed-
common or jointly with rights of survivorship, and the timing, if it was done
If
within
it
the 5
is, though,
years.
can she?
She doesn't have Medicare. She's got retirement insurance, so that's a whole other ball of wax. A lot of people don't realize that senior citizens can forgo Medicare. And in her case, it was too late to get out of it, so.
So can that happen if it's tenants in common?
If it's tenants in common, then technically your mother owns half,
Right.
and if she qualifies for Medicaid, ownership of her house won't prevent her from becoming eligible, but now upon her death, her 50% interest becomes part of her estate, and it becomes subject to estate recovery. So you want to look, again, as Terry said, look at the deed itself to see if it's a joint tenancy deed. That would be good. If it's a tenancy in common deed, then you might have an issue.
Jason, could you tell everybody too, so we don't just have it down of all the stuff we're all trying to digest here, but some of the fun things that the county offers aging people and their ability, because there really are. I mean, we are going down a path, but it's what it is. We knew that. But could you talk a little bit like the new Arts for
Yes.
Life and all that, please?
Yes, but I just want to make one quick point, though,
Sure.
and that is that older adults still have rights, okay? And that, that is their money, it is what they've earned, it's their resources, and they can make decisions, whether we agree with those decisions or not, so long as there's nothing that prevents their capacity from doing so. So, lots of times we don't agree with how somebody's managing their money, but we don't have a right to intervene.
Right.
Just because someone's over the age of 60 doesn't give us that right. And there's steps if there's someone who has capacity issues, that has impairment, that we can look at. But on a more pleasant note, okay?
Yes.
So we do offer a variety of services. We have 9 older adult active centers in Lackawanna County, scattered throughout, and we're going to be expanding that footprint. We're going to be expanding it differently, though. We're not going to be just building more senior centers. We're going to be looking to do community-based activities in the communities that everyone is accustomed to working in. So if you live in Old Forge and you want to go to an activity, there'll be activities from the Area Agency on Aging in Old Forge. Same thing with if it's in Jessup or if it's in Oliphant. There'll be activities there and the North Pocono region. So we're expanding that footprint, but what we do is we have health and wellness activities in all of our centers and throughout the county. We're going to be opening up more of those activities at both YMCA in Dunmore and the YMCA in Carbondale, and these will be free activities. We have a wonderful program through the Greenhouse Project that runs older adult kayaking, nature trails, succulent planting, gentle yoga, all at the greenhouse, and then in some various other locations throughout the county, so that it's not just inside a community center. And like I said, we're going to keep building and expanding those more recreationally based activities. But our newest group that is starting is the Arts for Life program. And that's a caregiver support program. And that's for those who are either, they're caring for a loved one and they need a little bit of respite. So this wonderful project is going to be based at the Jewish Home. And we have resident artists that are going to come in and they'll work with the caregiver and the care recipient, so that there's respite services for that period of time. So there's 2 separate groups running. In partnership with Dr. Cullen and her team, we've also been able to bring in resources from the Broadway Theater. Part of the respite will be you'll be able to attend a few Broadway shows a year and get out, with the assistance of transportation and aids if we need to. So it's one of our more innovative programs. It's brand new. It's just starting this month. We only have 5 people in the group, but if you're a caregiver and you want to explore it, please get in touch with us. We can get you in. Like I said, it's a wonderful respite opportunity. And then we do offer a whole bunch of other things that, there's volunteerism that we can look into if you're interested in doing that. And I'm talking about, some really, moving programs. Like we have our program where we help younger students at McNichols Plaza and a few other schools in the county learn to read better up until the age of 3rd grade. We're looking at volunteer programs that are going to help us with the census. The census is just around the corner, and it's really important to create a safe environment for those people who don't want to let individuals in their home or can't do the census online to come to. So lots of volunteer opportunities, lots of health and recreation activities. If you want to know about stuff, you can check out our website, you can check out our Facebook page, or you can call the office if you want to, and someone can help you and give you information.
Thank you. Any other questions for the panel? Marilyn?
I have a statement. I wish I had known about people when my mother was in the nursing home, because I had no help, except for the people that were at Mountain View at the time, and they were wonderful. But it was amazing.
Donna?
2 questions, one for Jason. If you want to file a complaint about somebody being abused in a nursing home or something, to that nature, ill treatment, do we go to the Attorney General? Like they always have, they picture it, or do we go to you directly?
It's us, 24/7.
Protective services.
24/7, we're open for protective services, and we're under a new statute that if it hits a certain threshold, we're obligated to inform the Attorney General.
Excellent. Okay, and Michael,
Yes.
when you go into a nursing home, you have 90 days of Medicare, correct? Is that a one-time lifetime?
Well, you could have up to actually 180 days.
Okay, but that's the one-time, once you exhaust that,
Well,
that's it.
Unless you had a new spell of illness and had a qualifying 3-day hospital stay, then you could,
Then you start over again?
all over again, yep.
Oh, great.
You almost want to get sick again.
That's what I'm talking about. Much better.
Could Diane, could each of us give one thought that the audience can take away from what they've already gleaned from this already? But one thought, one would just want to make a point before we leave, and each one of you do it before we close. And again, thank you, because this has been very informative.
It has been. Well, I think after doing this for so long, I think if you believe that somebody, either you're a caregiver or you have a family member or a neighbor, you think that they may benefit, or they may qualify for hospice, they probably do. So to call, to ask, it doesn't talk, it costs nothing to call. So if you have any questions or concerns, because the benefits certainly outweigh all the hardships. And then you have people like Marilyn, where is she? There you are, who, then you have contacts for life, and you always have that common bond, and you will never forget the people who cared for your loved one.
Thank you, Kevin.
So I talked about earlier the importance of planning in advance for purposes of preserving your estate and your assets. Planning in advance is important, but what I would also like everyone to know is that it is never too late to plan. So even after a parent, a spouse, another loved one is admitted to a nursing home, it is not too late to begin a plan to protect some of their resources for them. There is so much misinformation out there that people will say, well, my father is in a nursing home, he's paying privately already, there is nothing I can do, I'm just resigned to deplete him down to Medicaid limits and then qualify him for benefits. We find in the vast majority of cases there are still planning options, and oftentimes even after someone has been admitted to a nursing home, we can usually help them save about half of whatever they have left at that particular time. So just remember, it's never too late.
Thank you. Terry?
The planning part that Kevin's talking about is very, very important. As people are getting to the point where it's something that we talk to our clients, we do investment management in the trust department too. We talk to our clients about all the time. And Lori Barrett's here somewhere. She's another attorney who works in the trust department at Fidelity Bank. That's one of our common questions that we come in. People come in to talk about investments and say, do you have your estate plan done? Do you have a will? Do you have a durable power of attorney? You know, do you need a trust? And a lot of times in making that determination about whether you need a trust or not, or what you have, we also look at the whole financial picture. So we'll say to somebody, well, what do you have? What do you think you're going to need to live on, right? So maybe we can invest this part for you, and you can get, and we'll do the whole financial piece for it and tell you what the projections will be. This is what you can have. Maybe you take the other half of it, talk to an attorney, put it in a trust, and then, you know, make sure you don't need to do anything for 5 years in one day. And that's always protected because there's that 5-year look back. So we do provide a lot of the overreaching financial planning to accompany the estate planning.
Thank you. And Jason?
Well, I think the most important message I have, though, is the advocacy message tonight, and that we are, while we serve the largest portion, really, in some respects, of Lackawanna County, we are the smallest human service agency, and that we're here for all the older adults. If you're 60 and older in Lackawanna County, we are your voice in Harrisburg. We are continuously advocating for better services. We're continuously advocating for the resources that we need to improve and make sure that people's lives are protected. And just knowing that we're there. There's only 53 of us. We're a small agency, but we are there 24/7. We're there to help you with any problem or any question, big or small, doesn't matter. We're going to get you the answer that you need and give you the best service possible, because that's our whole mission, is to serve the public to the best of our ability. I have an incredible staff, and I know that they would move mountains if they had to make sure that someone was taken care of. So we're there for you. If there's anything that you need, do not hesitate to call on us. If there's just a simple question or if it's a complicated matter, it doesn't matter. Everyone's going to be treated the same, and everyone's going to get the service that they deserve.
Thank you. Michael?
Just to echo a little, again, Lackawanna County Area Agency on Aging is second to none. And if you have any question, they have a tremendous team, tremendous resources. Anytime, call them. And I just being on their board, it's just a tremendous. And being with Sue, I was back in '52. My one message would be, if you're faced with this, and a lot of times it's a sudden incident. Mom had a stroke. Whose plans for that? Mom broke her hip. You know, you're thrown into this maze of decision making very quickly, and where do I go? And the hospital's trying to get you out. If you're faced with the decision of long-term care, take some time. Don't let hospital case managers force you out the door. Make a wise decision. You always have time. visit the place where you want your mother to go. Go at off hours. Go at 8 o'clock at night. See how they're staffed. Go at mealtime. See how they're served. See what the food looks like. Is it appealing? Talk to other family members that are there. What could we expect? Investigate before you make that decision. Does my mother really need skilled? Let's go to personal care. Is my mom, could she get along in here? Does the physician think she could get along in here? So just educate yourself before, because, you know, Friday night, and anybody here from aging or it's in this industry, and Diane knows, you know, doctors are creatures of habit, and they get, I don't want to say lazy, but they don't discharge people, and then it's Friday, and the DRG's up, and we got to get them out, and the hospital administration, so you get dumped on, and they're going to call every nursing home, and you got to take this lady today, and blah, blah, blah. Don't let that happen to you. You know, take your time, research it, and make sure you make a wise decision, because it's, you know, it's a loved one, and you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. So that's my word of it. Also, CMS.gov, they have a star rating system, which shows you different levels for their staffing, how their surveys were, et cetera, to give you a release. Just don't go by that, because a lot of times there could be one bad incident that happened, you know. So, but use all the resources and educate yourself as much as you can before you make that decision.
Well, what do you say? Nice round of applause for our panel. So I want to thank again Diane Baldy, RN. Ann Cadden, RN. Diane Baldy, RN, who is the CEO of Hospice of the Sacred Heart. Kevin Grievous, who is he's a partner with Colbert and Grievous, specializing in elder law. Theresa Hinton, attorney Theresa Hinton, who is a trust officer and vice president at Fidelity Bank. Jason Kavulich, who is the director of Lackawanna County's Area Agency on Aging. And Michael Kelly, should I call you the owner? I mean, is there... President, I love it. I didn't know if Tommy was up there. President of Senior Healthcare Solutions. So I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your beautiful day today, for listening. We hope you've been able to take home some.
This was completely unexpected.
There, see? Thank you. Everyone enjoy the night, and thank you very much. Deb, Donna.
I got to tell you, that was really freaking good.
Well, do you